Next Chapter Podcasts.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
Screwball peanut butter whiskey? Why the hell not? A little salty, a little sweet, a little savory, and always smooth. Screwball, the original peanut butter whiskey that's unexpectedly delicious. Visit screwballwhiskey.com to learn more. That's Screwball with a K. Enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2023 Screwball Spirits, LLC, New York, New York.
Hi, my name is Michael Goodfriend, and I'm the executive producer of the Play On podcast series, Julius Caesar. All right, are you ready? Michael Potts, Act 1. An accomplished actor of stage and screen. In 2020, his portrayal of Slow Drag earned him critical acclaim in Netflix's award-winning feature adaptation of August Wilson's play, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. On the stage, he is known for originating the roles of Mafala Hatimbi in the 2011 Tony Award-winning musical comedy The Book of Mormon from Trey Parker, Robert Lopez, and Matt Stone, as well as the heartwarming Mr. Hawkins in the Tony-nominated Broadway musical The Prom. He received critical praise for his role as Joe Mott alongside Denzel Washington in the Tony-nominated Eugene O'Neill revival, The Iceman Cometh. And for his role in Iceman, Potts received the distinguished Richard Seff Award, which is presented to veteran actors for their performances in supporting roles both on and off Broadway. Additionally, he was appointed as the 2018 Denzel Washington Endowed Chair in the theater for Fordham University. In 2017, he starred as the notorious gossip Turnbow in the Tony Award-winning production of August Wilson's Jitney under the direction of Ruben Santiago Hudson. And that same year, Potts appeared alongside Olivia Wilde and Tom Sturridge in the stage adaptation of George Orwell's dystopian masterpiece, 1984. Potts is widely recognized for his role opposite Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson as Detective Maynard Gilbo in the Emmy Award-winning HBO anthology series True Detective. Act 2. Well-versed in producer David Simon's work, Potts starred opposite Idris Elba on HBO's critically acclaimed series The Wire. He starred in the HBO 6-hour miniseries Show Me a Hero, co-created by David Simon and directed by Oscar winner Paul Haggis. Recurring television roles also include CBS's Madam Secretary and Fox's Gotham. He's a graduate of the Yale School of Drama. His extensive theater background has afforded him several performances on New York's theater stages. Roles in Rent, The Tempest, Twelfth Night, and Richard III garnered him the Falstaff Award for Best Male Supporting Performance and the Village Voice's Obie Award for his portrayal in the off-Broadway production of The America Play. He originated the role of Brooks Sr. in the Tony Award-winning play Grey Gardens, and additionally the role of Paul Pierce in Tony Kushner's The Intelligent Homosexual's Guide to Capitalism and Socialism with a Key to the Scriptures at the Guthrie Theater. In The Regions, Michael has starred as Oedipus, Highway Ulysses, Romeo and Juliet. I'm done. I can't go any further. He's done everything. And finally, he's ready to do podcasts, which is why he's here with me today. We finally decided that we could allow you into the rarefied air of the land of the podcast.
I didn't write a lick of that. This is what happens when you pay a publicist.
That's all made up?
No, it's all the credits.
Well, sometimes it's great to hear yourself read out loud, isn't it? Because you go, oh my God, I did do that and that. And
yeah, that is. I was like, wow, that does sound like I did a lot. I haven't wasted all that time.
I mean, really, because as actors, right, it's like you think that you're done after the last job.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that's it,
Oh yeah. I think I'm done now. I have no
And
idea.
he landed with a thud as Julius Caesar in the play on
Well, that's it. You,
podcast.
you're only as good as your next job.
You're brilliant as Julius Caesar. And I mean, I am humbled and honored that you accepted that offer when it came your way. It's been such a joy to listen to you day after day as we do the post-production editing. What was the experience like for you? I'm curious. It's not stage, it's not television. Did you enjoy it?
First of all, thank you for asking, and that's why I did it because your name was attached to it. I
You
was
see, I have that kind of pull, that kind of
it's like
clout.
Michael Goodfriend. Wow, I haven't seen him since
Just wait.
school.
Just wait. I'm going to send you my bio and I want you to read it back to me.
Okay. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was I didn't know what to expect. It was really quite low pressure.
Yes.
And so I mean clearly you're professionals at this and at experts at it because it was so logistically so well laid out and prepared. It was to pull all these people from I mean we were in different coasts and different
All over the place.
time zones to make this happen and doing it over Zoom. It was quite exceptional.
I do have to give a special shout out there to Liana Keys and Kira Bowie from Transcend Streaming, our
Absolutely.
coordinating producers. They keep those trains all coming in on time, which is really truly a feat.
Yeah. No,
Given
it was
what you said.
great. And it was wonderful because I'd never done Julius Caesar before.
In
Never.
no role in Julius Caesar ever?
No role at all.
You're originally from Wisaki, South Carolina.
Wysaki. Why
Why Saki?
I grew
Thank
up
you.
there. I grew up there. I actually was born in Brooklyn. Born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
But at about 4 years old or something like that, my parents sent me down to my maternal grandparents because my mom thought it was a great idea for me to grow up in a little farm rather than in the city. And she
Oh,
and dad were bouncing from lease to lease to lease.
right.
And so she wanted me to, so 9 months out of the year, I'd be down there, and in the summers, I'd come back up to them. And then around junior high school, they flipped it because schools are better in New York than they were in South
Those are
Carolina.
some very forward-thinking parents. So,
Yeah,
were they right? Do you think? I mean,
they were
was
absolutely,
the farm a good place to grow up
it was fantastic. I mean, it was a really tiny community. I think at its height, there may have been 500 people in this little town.
in South Carolina, in the country? Were you a literary youngster? Did you listen to stories? What sparked the actor self in you?
Well, it wasn't there that sparked the actor. I mean, it was very literate. It was very went to school. You were expected to do exceptionally well, or you would be in a lot of trouble if you got home. And here's the thing: when you live in a small community like that, everyone knows your grandparents.
Mhm.
So if you misbehaved in school, if you weren't performing in school, that news was home before you got there.
Mhm.
So basically, there truly was a village raising you, and
Yeah.
anyone could call you out and discipline you, and anyone and everyone, if you were in
Right.
trouble, would call your parents to let you know you had misbehaved or that your work
And
wasn't.
the bigger the trouble, the more calls your parents would get.
More calls. Luckily, I didn't get too many because I kind of liked school. I dug it
Mhm.
as a kid. So, I did my homework and I did what I needed to do. But the acting bug, no. I mean, it's interesting. The acting that we did do, I didn't like at our church.
Hmm.
Well, my grandparents' church anyway. Around the holidays, they had these little pageants. Around Christmas, Easter there'd be some reenactment of the Christ on the cross, that sort of thing, like a little
Mhm.
pageant.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Pageant theater.
Christmas, we would all the kids had to give Christmas speeches
Hmm.
in front of, there was a whole program after the main service. Everyone go home, have dinner, and then come back to church to have the Christmas pageant where you sang and you did speeches and you were required. There was no way of getting out of it. I guess in a sense, my skills came about for fear of my grandmother, who would say, I'm going to be sitting in the back and I better hear every word. You better not make a mistake. Don't you mumble up there.
Right.
And so she
That's
was the
that's where
one
you
who taught
honed
me
your
about,
skills.
yes, projection and memorizing speeches was basically
Yeah.
where that came from. But no, I never took it seriously at that point. It was just something I dreaded, but that I was required to do, and you weren't allowed to get out of it.
Right. And so then when did you know you were an actor?
Oh, I honestly, when did I start taking it seriously? I probably didn't start taking it somewhat seriously, maybe in high school. I think junior year of high school, we had a Shakespeare festival, basically. We had an AP, advanced placement English teacher, Grady Lockley, I remember him to this day, who felt that he was the reincarnation of Shakespeare. So every year he would stage this pageant where, famous scenes from famous Shakespeare plays would
Mhm.
be would be performed for the school. And I remember doing the Porter scene from Macbeth, and I got to do the Porter.
Oh, that's a great thing
It's a
to
great thing. That was a lot of
cut you
fun.
to. So a great lesson in comedy
Yeah, it was.
and timing.
It was. Actually, I think, yeah, I think I did that for my Yale audition, in fact.
Oh, really?
I think I did the Porter for my, yeah, I did the Porter scene from Macbeth. But
Wow.
anyway, during that, when we did that performance, a local theater teacher, Katie Dameron, she'd come to see a fellow student of mine who was also taking classes at her little company, her little school. And she told him that she wanted me in her class. She liked what she saw, coming and be in my class. So I started going to her classes, and she put it in the idea in my head because her son was a mime and had gone to the Marcel Marceau school. She had had another student who had gone to Juilliard. So she's the one who started me seriously thinking about being an actor as
Mm.
a career. So it's probably around that time, junior year of high school, that I got bitten by it.
And you started performing in shows in high school and then
No, I didn't.
no, okay. College.
College. Undergrad is when but
Where did you go to undergrad?
I went to Columbia for undergrad,
Okay.
but that wasn't environment. Columbia didn't believe in, they had no art program on the undergraduate level. Um,
Really, Columbia University,
yeah, they did
the
not.
esteemed.
The graduate school had an arts program, but acting was not a part of it. I
Okay.
think they had playwriting, theater management, and directing, and that was it. And so, of course, they would get students from undergrad or wherever, or just outside of the school, to come and do the plays that the playwrights had written or to work with the directors. But it was not, Columbia didn't believe in acting as an actual career, or certainly at that point, the
Right.
undergraduate level,
Right.
as a degree granting profession. But I did a couple of things there.
And you knew what inspired you then to, so did you graduate and go straight into grad school or did you work
No,
some?
no, not at all. Yeah, prior to that, honestly, I went to Columbia as a pre-med
Oh.
because I thought I was going to be a doctor. And when
Mhm.
your mother hears something like that, that's it.
Yeah.
So the acting thing
She sets her retirement date.
was a little
You
frivolous. It was like, it was cute.
yes.
That was cute, but you don't do that. You're not going to do
Right. You're going to take care of me in my old age.
pretty much.
Yeah.
So that wasn't, and then I ran into, while I was there, one of my teachers. I took a dramatic writing class, and it was Arnold Weinstein. Uh, and he's the one who put Yale into my head.
Hmm.
And I learned later, because also the gentleman who was the head of, who ran the graduate art school, was Howard Stein. And they both had been at the Yale School of Drama under
Okay.
Brustein,
Robert Brustein, the
under Robert
founder of Yale
Brustein.
Rep. Yes.
Yeah, they were both there. So, in hindsight, I understood why they were promoting Yale so heavily.
Yes. They had an
And so
agenda.
that was in my head, and I just decided at some point I didn't go right away when I left school. I dropped the pre-med thing, which, of course broke my mother's heart.
Yeah.
And I actually worked for the city, New York City, for a few years, Parking Violations Bureau.
Oh, you were one of them.
Well, I didn't give out tickets. I worked in
Oh,
where people came to have if they wanted to see a judge or get a printout of what they owed in order to get their vehicles out of tow, out of
okay.
get their impounded vehicles out of tow. That was the job that I took.
I was once written up by a parking violation officer for being irate, abusive, and profane.
You're kidding.
It was in
Kidding.
Los Angeles. It was
Oh,
the
I'm getting ready to say,
nadir of my career.
Mark,
I think I was.
the officers here don't use that language.
I had run out of my unemployment checks at that point, I think. And I remember I ran out shirtless. I saw them writing me up and I was
Oh
like,
no.
wait, I'll move the car. And then they kept writing the ticket. And I was, yeah, I
You
did
became
become
abusive
irate.
and profane.
The abuse, I think, was verbal. It was all verbal, but I was definitely irate and profane. So they added another $50 on.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good story.
So you worked there and so you had decided I'm not going to do pre-med. I don't like medicine. I'm not going to be a
Right.
doctor. I'm going to go into parking violations.
Well, that was a good job to get after undergrad because, with my mother, I think you had a 6 week limit of
Yes.
not being
Before.
employed. You can live in my house unemployed
Uh,
6 weeks tops. That's it. And she just brought in all these newspapers and said, "Look at the help wanted. You got to get a
but
job."
and in that period were you like, I want to act, but you hadn't admitted it to
Yeah,
yourself?
I was torn. I
Okay.
really wanted to
Okay.
do it. But I felt because I had been away from it, and at that point, I didn't feel I had a way in. I didn't know what the next steps were. And some part of me also thought it was a bit frivolous. I mean, going back to it, rewinding a little bit, I remember when I did really, after undergrad, my mom had an intervention. I came home one
Right.
afternoon after my summer job, and there was a dining room full of people, family and neighbors. Mom dishing out food, and she goes, "Sit down, we want to talk to you,"
Mhm.
which I thought was strange, and I kind of laughed at it. We want to talk to you about this acting thing.
I've always thought it would be great to have a series. There's people's coming out stories. When you come out to your parents that you're
Yeah.
gay or whatever. The people's coming out stories when they come out to their parents that they're going to be an actor or an artist.
Oh yeah. Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Those would be rich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
no.
you're there, the family, they're trying to tell
Oh,
you like,
they were
don't do
trying to
this. You're a
dissuade
smart
me.
young man. You've got a bright
Yes,
future ahead of
I
you.
needed to do something that contributes. That's
Oh,
how they saw it. Well,
oh.
that's how the neighbor, who I couldn't understand why she was there in the first place.
It's the heavy artillery.
It's
When
like,
you
why is she here? She was the loudest one in the room. Well, her stories I learned, she was a former Black Panther. So
oh,
she's very aggressive. And she was
oh,
telling
okay.
me I needed to, contribute to my people. And I
Yeah.
remember, what did she say? Acting, acting. Black people have been acting all their lives. You got
Oh,
to do something that contributes.
oh, that is some heavy guilt. That's
And
beyond Jewish.
that
That's
that more than anything else that happened during that little intervention, that's the one thing that stuck with me and just, threw my world
oh,
upside down.
yeah, yeah.
And so, what do I do? What do I do? What can I do? And it wasn't until, I spoke to my counselor at that point, and she says, I understand, that's true. We need more Black doctors, more Black lawyers, but whatever you do, if you do it well, it contributes. You can be an actor, you can be an artist and contribute.
Yeah.
So that kind of broke the yoke for me, and I started thinking about it more seriously. And then it was, I think the 80s was when Fences was up for the Tonys. And I remember one Sunday, uh, And at this time, I was also, because I had done ROTC while I was doing all this undergraduate stuff.
Mhm.
So I was stationed in Fort Sill, Oklahoma during my officer basic course, watching the Tonys. And that was the year Fences was up. And back then, remember, they used to do little snippets from the plays that were nominated. That was the year the late, great James Earl Jones and Courtney Vance did the scene from Fences.
Mhm.
And I was so enthralled by that. And in my mind, it was the first time I saw and heard my experience. People who looked like me and sounded like me and sounded like the people I grew up around. And I thought, okay, there is a place. And so at that moment, I was trying to figure out, how did Courtney Vance get there? How did he get there to be standing next to James Earl Jones, whom I remember from Great White Hope when I was a kid and seeing that movie on television and knowing that he had done it on stage. And I found out he had gone to Yale.
Mm.
And I said, I have to go to Yale.
Mm.
And that's how that happened. I decided one year I'm going to audition for the Yale School of Drama. And I said it was the only place I was going to audition. And I said, I'm leaving it up to the heavens. I'm leaving it up to God, to the universe. If I get in, I'm meant to do this. If I don't get in, then I'm not meant to do it.
That's, you know, it's like my son right now who's 11 years old. If the Seahawks win, it means God exists.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
He's absolutely right.
yes. So you got in, you auditioned for Earl Gister,
And I got
right?
in. Earl was not there. Earl was still
Oh,
recuperating because that's when he had had the tracheotomy.
oh yes.
So he had done, from what I heard, he had done the first half of the audition tour, maybe LA and some other places. But when
Mhm.
I got there, it wasn't him, it was Barbara Somerville.
Oh,
She was
the
doing
speech teacher,
speech teacher. So she was doing them. Was there someone else? Did David Chambers sit in on them?
probably.
Can't remember. So it was either just her or it was her and David
Wha-
auditioned for. And
So,
Earl said, okay. Well, he couldn't speak at that point, I'm sure, after
right.
surgery.
He wrote.
His
Yes.
vote was like, okay, I guess.
Earl Gister, may he rest in peace. And
Man,
this is where you and I find our great nexus point and how I inspired you for the rest of your career.
that's it. Exactly
So
how it was.
you you just to be honest, right? You graduated long before I got in, not long before, just a year or so before I started. And but it was there. I mean, Yale does that to you, right? It really like it cements your resolve. It gives
It
you
really did.
technique
It really
and
did. Those, and everybody has their experience of Yale, experience at Yale and of Yale. My experience was just golden. It was 3 golden years because
beautiful.
I came there with imposter syndrome. Like, that
Mhm.
first day just before orientation, and you're all out, you see your classmates, and I'm looking around, I'm going, wow, these are really talented people. These
Yeah,
incredibly talented people. How did I get here?
right.
And so I spent so much of those first few months feeling like an imposter. I think I was the last one to go up when we started doing scene study
Uh,
because I was like, I'm just going to get up here and just wet the bed. I'm
mhm.
just going to be so awful. But, once I got into it and the teachers, it just became a golden time. I finally was like, oh my God, this is what acting is. There's a
Yes.
technique to this stuff that I can use, that I
Mhm.
can do. And
I
I
love
got,
this story. You told me this story once. Actually, I'll say you did tell this story at Earl Gister's memorial, and I'd love it if you told it again. What he said to you at the very beginning when you were so nervous about getting up and performing in front of your peers. Can you tell that story?
wow. I'm trying to remember. I know. Well, can I say it on the podcast? I
Yeah,
know
you can say we put the
at the
explicit.
very
We put
end of it, his admonishment to me was like, "Fuck them."
right.
was
Yes,
was basically fuck them.
right.
You
With
know,
his voice
but I
amplifier.
worried I can't do it. I don't know if I'm able to. I don't know if I'm good enough. Blah 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 blah. And at the very end, he's like, "Fuck them."
Fuck them. I think that's the best acting advice you could get,
It did.
you
Yeah.
know?
Said if they don't like it, if they don't like he's now, fuck them. Fuck them. You can do this. You can do this.
When you're on the go and it's time to refresh your energy, grab an ice-cold Celsius Arctic Vibe, where zero sugar, 7 essential vitamins, and proven ingredients meet the pure refreshment of frozen berry. Unlike traditional energy drinks, each sip of Celsius is a perfect balance of flavor and function. So whether you're hitting the gym, the office, or your next adventure, grab an Arctic Vibe at your local retailer or visit Celsius.com to learn more.
When you're part of a military family, you understand sacrifice and support. At American Public University, we honor your dedication by extending our military tuition savings to your extended family. Parents, spouses, legal partners, siblings, and dependents all qualify for APU's preferred military rate of just $250 per credit hour for undergraduate and master's level programs. American Public University. Value for the whole family. Learn more at apu.apus.edu/military.
And when did so you got out, you get your MFA, the 3 years of heaven comes screeching to a halt, you hit the
It
pavement,
did. Yeah.
and you started working. How long was the journey before you could, I mean, I know this never goes away, right? Like we said at the beginning, you never feel like you've made it, but when did you feel like, okay, I've got a career. I can make my mother's proud.
Oh. Um, I mean, luckily mom came to see a lot of the early things and she was proud then. I
Well,
didn't think
that's fortunate.
I
So
didn't
she
yeah,
embraced it when she saw. Was it
she
when
did
you
come
went to
around.
Yale that she was like, okay, that's what my boy's going to be. He's going to be an actor.
No, it took her until after Yale. Remember Joyce used to be in the office, Earl said.
Yes, Joyce, the
Even Joyce
secretary.
knew how much my mother was against my being there.
It had become lore.
It had
Okay.
become, she even realized. And it took mom a while to come around. I think it was probably after graduation and maybe seeing the first few shows that she finally was like, okay, you're good at this. But what she was most worried about, it wasn't that she was against the profession of acting. Mothers want you to be able to take care of yourself.
Right.
And her concern is that I would be poor and homeless, that I couldn't make a living doing it.
Yeah.
That's what bothered her. Because to a certain extent, she didn't know what it was no more than I did. It's like, how do you do that? I mean, you can
Yeah.
watch television and go to the movies. We have no idea. And she took me to plays on Broadway as part of, church trips to see The Wiz, the original Wiz, or Your Arms Too Short to
Mm.
Box, anything kind of religious themed. She would take
Safe.
to.
Yes.
So it wasn't foreign to her, but she had no, like most parents, how do you do that? How do
Right.
you, to them, you just show up and just say these lines and that's done. They have no clue how it works. And I remember the funny thing was when I got my first jobs and after you have the rehearsal process and you're home during the day and perform at night, and she would call, you home? And I was like, yes, I'm home. You're still working? I said, yes, mom. I go, she said, that's a strange kind of job.
Yeah.
You're home.
It's
But
you're off on Monday?
yeah, she
That must be
never,
great. No, it's my only day
yeah,
off.
she never understood how it worked. But she did become, very, very pleased with it. But it was later on. It was after I graduated.
Yeah.
But I never felt that because I wasn't working as much or as profitably in the beginning. I mean, off Broadway
Were you
wasn't
doing that
anything.
thing? You probably who did you graduate with? Who was in your class that we know of?
The biggest name is, of course,
Liev Schreiber.
Liev Schreiber, Malcolm Getz. He
Yeah,
went and
yeah.
got a series like 2 years out or a year out after that ran for 5 years.
Yeah.
Caroline in the City or something like that.
Caroline in the City. Yep.
Daryl Fierce worked, my dear friend whom we lost, but he worked consistently out of school. Chris Bauer,
Chris
who
Bauer.
still
Yeah.
works,
Great character.
the
I mean
hardest
that.
working man in this business. He never stops working.
Yeah. Great
So
character
those were the
actor.
people working, which was highly unusual for any class, as you know, to have
Yeah.
that many people.
And that makes it even harder, right? Because you're
Yeah,
graduating and you're looking around. There's Liev Schreiber on a billboard, right?
yeah,
A
yeah,
freaking billboard.
yeah,
And you're like, my God, what am I? I'm a failure. I suck.
for sure.
All the imposter syndrome comes back. It was
It
just
does. It absolutely does. And
yeah.
nothing that, because, and it's that thing. It was working so well at school. And then you have the realization school and real life are two different, very, very different things. Like, it doesn't work like that out here.
Right. They don't just
Yeah,
ask me.
yeah, they don't.
And in fact, as Earl would say, and we can do Earl's voice again for this.
Yes.
But they're looking at you down the barrel of a gun when you come out of a program like that. Like,
Oh,
prove it
yeah.
to me. Prove to me that you're
Yeah.
better than I was, because I auditioned for Yale too, and I didn't get in.
A lot of that. Oh,
All-
yeah. There was a lot of that.
The
It
chip
was
is on both shoulders, your shoulder and theirs.
ridiculous. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of that in the very, very beginning. But
But
it was
then you,
also that when I got out, it was because the business was like what was popular. And when
right,
I graduated in 1992, Boys in the Hood was the big movie out of Hollywood. It's
right.
Hollywood had discovered the inner city black male.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Street was the term that they were
Right.
used. And I remember Daryl and I, another my classmate, we were two black male actors in the class, would always laugh how many times we were asked to make a character more street.
Yes. And then they say goodbye to you and they call you the wrong name.
Exactly. Um, uh, oh, the one fun time when Daryl and I, because oddly, people thought we were the same type. So we would audition for a lot of the same roles. And there was one day we were both auditioning for something, and I went in, and I happened to be in the elevator with the director. Uh, and I think maybe his assistant or maybe one of the producers. And I was taken aback because he looked at me and he went, "Oh, you're back." And I went, "You went, yeah." And then I realized, oh, Daryl must have been in here earlier. He's mistaken me for Daryl, which
God.
had happened, which wasn't the first time that it happened. So I just played into him like, yeah, I didn't like what I did the first time. So I decided to come back and give it a shot. I changed clothes and everything.
Times have changed.
Times have changed.
You
Yeah,
know,
everything's on
you
tape.
say you say you were one of, well, right. But you said you're one of two black male actors in your
Yeah,
class at Yale, and now the at least the alumni stuff that I see, that the palette has changed.
it has.
So kudos to
It
James
has.
Bundy. They may have
Yeah.
changed the name to the David Geffen School of Drama, but
Yes. Yes. David
they,
Devin drama at Yale. I was like, oh,
at
that's
Yale.
a
That's
mouthful.
right.
Yeah.
So, but what was the point where things changed for you, where you felt like that seeing Liev on the billboard didn't cut to the heart? I'm not that it ever did, but I'm just saying, like, that you weren't like, I'm down here,
Mhm.
trying to make it.
Well, but first of all, the Liev on the billboard didn't cut because we all expected. I think the whole class kind of thought if anyone was going to do it,
Mhm.
if you did a most likely to succeed kind of thing, we felt that Liev would probably do well once we got
Okay.
us. So that wasn't the surprise. That wasn't surprising to us at all.
Was there a show you booked or something that kind of felt like you settled in?
I'll tell you, it happened late because, as I said in the beginning, I wasn't working. And after about the first 8 years, because I was a street enough, my agents
Right.
dumped me. So I was
Hmm.
without an agent for a few months. Um, and the only roles I was kind of booking is that I would have to do dialects. Thank you, Barbara Somerville, teaching us how to do.
Barbara Somerville, comma finds a cure.
Yeah, exactly. I play
She
all
wrote the
sorts of
book.
Caribbean and African characters. That's how I kind of made it. But I didn't really think I was getting anywhere until 2011 with the Book of Mormon, really,
Mhm.
because I'd never had that experience with a show being that much of a, being in anything that was a phenomenon like that.
And you had the dialect for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because I had done so many African dialects prior, I was already, I was prepared.
That's right. In the
So
pocket.
um, um, I was able to do that. And it really wasn't until then. It was that particular time that I started being in a hit show. I'm going, oh, okay, I think I know what I'm doing.
But it's so inspiring, because that is a long journey to 2011 from
Yes, it was.
1995,
92.
really? 92 to
92.
2011.
Yeah.
That before you felt like, okay, I'm a professional, like I'm a working, steadily
I'm
working
working, I'm a
professional actor.
professional actor. And honestly, and it's only been recently that I feel like in control of my abilities, where I feel
Mm,
like I know what I'm doing without apology. Because I think even then,
right,
2011, although I felt like a real actor, sometimes I felt like I wasn't doing all I knew how to do. I think I
right,
was concerned about still be concerned about how it would be perceived in the industry,
right,
or basically working more to please people who could hire me,
right, right.
as opposed to just being the artist that I can be, that I know that I could be. And honestly only recently with the piano lesson in 22
Mm-hmm.
is when I finally just went without apology. It's like, I'm just going to do my thing. And that Earl came, fuck them. It became,
Yeah,
is when I finally just went, you know what, fuck them. I know what I'm doing. I
right.
know I'm really good at this, and I'm going to do it without apology. I'm going to use my full powers.
Did you meet August Wilson?
No, see, unfortunately, I was the summer after first year, I went up to the O'Neill Center.
Mm-hmm.
Now they would get some actors to do, and I was just doing the readings. I didn't get
Right.
to do any of
Summer
the,
after first year at Yale.
yeah. And
Right.
so he was up there. And I don't know which play he was working on at the time,
With Lloyd
but I just
Richards.
remember, you'd have breakfast in the morning kind of communally, and he happened to sit at the same table I was sitting at. And I just kind of just sat there and, and looked at him, and he was busy scribbling and writing stuff and eating,
Wow.
smearing peanut butter on this giant cinnamon roll or whatever it was,
Uh,
eating. And so I just kind of stared for a while, but I was too intimidated and too nervous to say hello or to speak to him or even to interrupt him, because clearly he was focused on what he was writing.
right.
But that was the only time
Wow.
I really ever met him. I was in his proximity.
That's so interesting because reading your bio, it's like, oh, well, you must have known August Wilson.
No,
You must have.
no, I did not.
How?
In the beginning, no one thought I'm sure people didn't see me as an August Wilson actor. I mean, of course, initially too young to
Mhm.
play those roles uh, to begin with. But I think a lot of casting directors and directors just didn't see me as someone who could do August Wilson.
Amazing. So, how did Ma Rainey come about for you?
Ruben Santiago Hudson, there's this thing in New York called Encores, where they perform it at City Center, sort of an off-Broadway thing. They try to bring back old musicals that had been famous in the past or hadn't been performed very often, and they bring them back. It's high pressure, sort of. You have 2 weeks to get an entire musical together with a full orchestra, mind you, and perform it. Kind of a staged, book in hand, that sort of thing,
Mhm.
performance of these musicals. And they were doing, I don't know if you've heard of the movie Cabin in the Sky.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, the artistic director of Encores at that time, they had put a lot of money into recreating the book and the libretto and the music, because it had been lost or there were only fragments of it. So I think they put a lot of money into reconstructing the libretto of it. And Ruben was directing it. And I think it was the late Jay Bender. was the casting director at that time. He brought me in to perform for it, and I got to perform audition for Reuben, and ended up with the lead in it with the great LaChance. So we were the co-leads in this musical. And so that's how I first got to know him. And then the next thing I heard, he was going to be directing August Wilson's Jitney for Manhattan Theater Club. So I went to audition for that. And so I think he convinced the producers over there that I could do this because they didn't see me as being able to do August Wilson, of course. He convinced them. I got to do Jitney. And towards the end of the run, Denzel and his wife Pauletta came. But they came because I didn't know at that time. This was after Denzel had announced he was going to turn all the plays into musicals, not musicals, movies. Sorry,
Movies, yeah.
He's going to turn them all into movies. I didn't know at that time that they were already working on the script for Ma Rainey, and Reuben was doing it. Reuben was doing it. So that became, as you say, you have to be lucky in the business.
Yeah.
That became a moment where of luck. I was doing Jitney. It was a great production, won the Tony for Best Revival. He and Reuben were already working on the movie. And then later that fall, I got to be in The Iceman Cometh, directed by George. And George had also come and seen the Jitney.
Right.
George Wolfe.
C. Wolfe.
George C. Wolfe. And so I was now getting to, well, Denzel could see me work up close. He can get a sense of who I am and the work. And he would tell me about his plans for turning the plays into movies, blah, 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 and he says, and I can use actors and I don't have to use big names, blah, blah, blah. And I can use this person, that person, I can use you. And in my head, I'm going, sure.
Right. Someday, maybe
in
your dreams.
I said, I just hope when you finally get to Jitney, that maybe down the line, when you finally get to Jitney at the end, I could get a shot at the same role that you saw me in.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be the end of it. And then months later, after Iceman had closed, months later, and then suddenly we get a call, Denzel wants you to be in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. And they want you for this role. So that's how that happened.
And they want you to do it. No audition. You didn't have to. No. Oh my God, actor's dream.
Actor's dream.
So, wow. And you were like, let me check my calendar.
I think I told my manager, I said, no, you need to check that again.
There you are doing that, filming that incredible story with, may he rest in peace, the great Chadwick Boseman.
That's right. That's right.
And can you talk about the experience? Can we talk about him?
Sure we can. We absolutely can.
Did you know he was sick when you started filming?
No one had a clue.
Wow.
Absolutely no one. I mean, it's things in hindsight, you kind of go, oh, because, when you're a star at that level, you have your entourage, you have people who take care of you, your assistants, and of course you have your own makeup person and wardrobe person and all of that. But I noticed that people were taking great care of him.
But you figure that's just star treatment.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I think I remember making a comment one time. I said, that's a lot of people in that SUV. That's quite the entourage for one person. Because Denzel didn't have, I'm going, and Denzel's been an A-lister 40 years and he don't have people around him. And I'm going, he's the $1 billion man. He's Black Panther.
Right.
And then sometimes he would be late coming back, from a break or to set, or even, in the mornings for call. And I'm going, okay, he's Black Panther. Right. He's do that.
Doing an interview, he's doing whatever. Right.
Yeah. Right. But in hindsight, you recognize, he wasn't well. Yeah. But he never showed it on set. I mean, he would do take after take after take, and he would, the thing we used to laugh at, he would look at George and go, one more. Let me do one more. Wow. And we were like, oh my God, how many takes of this scene?
Now,
But continue.
George and Denzel must have known that he was sick. Yeah.
No, no,
No. Oh
no,
my God.
no
That's
clue.
incredible.
No clue. Absolutely no one had a clue. He
Wow.
and his doctor and his then fiance, now wife, Simone, she knew. Of course, everyone
Yeah.
around him knew,
Yeah.
and they were taking care of him, but no, we didn't know. And then when I spoke after he'd passed, I spoke to the actor Tori Kittles, who played my partner in True Detective that season.
Mhm.
And he and Chad were very, very close. And I spoke to him about it after, it became public knowledge after his passing. And Tori was saying, yeah, he knew, but he always thought he would beat it. Said he was completely convinced he would beat it. And so he said basically the only people who knew were, I think, Chad and his doctors, because he had already finished negotiations for Black Panther 2. But so no one other than those extremely close to him probably knew. But there was nothing in his performance that would that would lead you to believe he wasn't 100%
Yeah. Do you
complete.
have is there a story, sort of an inside story that you can tell us, not gossip, but just something near and dear to you from that set, from that experience?
Well, there's a line that he says he's playing Levy and I'm the bass player. And so at some point there's this whole big thing. Chad's character Levy has just spent his money on this fancy pair of shoes.
Hmm.
He's very precious about these shoes. And so that at some point, my character Slow Drag stepped on his shoes
Right.
for just stepped on it.
For
And it became this tense confrontation between the two of them, where
right.
basically I tell him, well, move him out of the way. I didn't step on your shoe.
Right.
Get him out of the darn way. And and there's a line that he said when we were practicing, because he's very condescending to his fellow musicians because he's the brilliant
Right.
musician, the brilliant artist. It's a line he uses: if you were any kind of musician, you'd take better care of your instrument. And so that became a running joke. And so at some point, he was playing his instrument was the trumpet
Hmm.
or the cornet. And at one point, I think in between takes, he was picking it up and he dropped the mouthpiece and it hit the floor. It was just complete silence. And just very quietly out of nowhere, Glenn Turman was like, if you were any kind of musician, you take care.
Better care of your instrument.
And Chad he turned and he knew he was caught. And the biggest smile came on his face and he just kind of collapsed into laughter. So
And
from
everybody on the set went, "Oh."
yes, yes. And it just became a running thing. If anybody made a mistake at all, and he would repeat it. It was like, if you was any kind of musician. So I think that's my favorite story from that. Because and we be just everybody, we became so tight and so close. And Viola Davis said this interesting thing when she described Chad on the set of Ma Rainey. It's like, he didn't make his presence wasn't the event, aside from being a brilliant, brilliant actor. He was such a great person. And wrote me this beautiful letter at the end. He gave me this harmonica as a little rap present. And at that point, there was still talk of there was going to be a little tour, Jitney, that I was attached to for a little bit, and it was going to stop. And he says, "I want to know when it comes to LA because I'm going to come and see you."
Are
Yeah.
they going to do a film of Jitney? Is
Oh,
that in the
yeah.
works?
Eventually, I don't know when. If Denzel initially said he was going to go in order how they went to Broadway,
Yeah, in the order of the
and so
canon,
which
so to
means
speak.
Jitney's dead last.
Okay.
Jitney was the last one to go to Broadway.
How many how many went to Broadway? Of
All of them.
all of them.
All of
And
them.
how many is that total?
10.
Wow.
Yeah, Jitney was the last one. Ruben really, really, it was his mission. God bless him. Ruben's mission was to make sure that Jitney got to, he said every last one of them has to go to Broadway. How does Jitney not make it to Broadway?
Right.
And he campaigned and pushed and cajoled everybody. And finally, Manhattan Theater Club, I think, which produced the early August Wilson plays initially on Broadway.
Yeah.
Lynn Meadows said, okay, you're right. We have to do it.
Right.
But yeah, Jitney's dead last.
What are you going to do next? Do you have things lined up?
Right now, it's just press because
Right.
the Piano Lesson movie is released on November 8th in theaters and starts streaming on Netflix on the 22nd of
So
November.
we can see you in the piano lesson.
DMU Piano Lesson. So right now we're doing a bunch of press junkets and they were doing festivals. So I was up in Toronto a few weeks ago at the Toronto Film Festival where it was where the movie was a special presentation. So, and we're going to Savannah to get an ensemble award, and then there's more press junkets here in New York, honoring of Sam Jackson at MoMA, Museum of Modern Art, for those people who don't know. And then the Gotham Awards in December, and there's going to be the LA premiere. Excuse me. So right now, that's mostly what's going on. I am going to be working on doing a quick lab of a James Brown musical. And then I'm going to direct, God help me, an Othello lab
Right.
in December.
That's great.
And I just got back from Vancouver from shooting an episode of Irrational, NBC TV show. Going back to my African dialects again.
You've made it when you can't think of all the projects you've got lined up.
No, I'm just talking
Because
about
because
that's it.
This is a lot. Usually it's like I'm gearing up to play this but I mean you've got press junkets, you've got this other thing and the other thing. I mean,
yeah, but that's for them. That's Netflix.
True.
That's for Netflix. That's hopefully it's award season, and
right.
The producers, we're pushing it to get as many awards as possible for the movie.
Well, get ready to receive your Ambi for your performance of Julius Caesar. It's just been so great to hear you and to reconnect with you on this project and to work with you and Harry Lennox and
oh wow, yes. The thing is, and I think the only time I ever worked with Harry was it Madam Secretary Blacklist,
yeah.
And I don't think we even had any scenes together, but that was the only time. I mean, I've known his work for years. Another great August Wilson actor as well.
Right. And he like you, just out there, just working on so
many
different
just
types
working,
of
I'm blessed to be a working actor. And I mean, I don't know how I got here. Well, it's really not as I planned it, so I don't know how it happened.
As long as you're willing to do podcasts, you'll still be working. And as long as I'm producing them.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
It's a great honor and a privilege, and I so appreciate you, your time, your talent. Thank you for sharing all of this with us. It's really inspiring.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you. I'm grateful you asked.
Maybe we can talk about after all the films have been made, we can do all the August Wilson podcasts.
Ooh, that's a great idea.
There we go.
That's a great idea.
They would do well as podcasts.
I think they would.
Yeah.
They absolutely would.
Let's make that happen.
Okay, yes. Brilliant idea.
You, me, Denzel,
Yes, well, yeah. Well, and, Costanza. The whole estate of August Wilson.
All right.
She gets final say.
That's right. That's a tough estate. They're tough.
They're very tough. Yes.
You've been listening to the Play On Podcast bonus content series. You can learn more about the Play On Podcast at Next Chapter Podcast website, nextchapterpodcasts.com. That's Next Chapter Podcasts with an S at the end, where you can find other Play On Podcast series and interviews, along with talk podcasts like The 500, Indecent with Kiki Anderson, Beef with Bridget Todd, and a whole lot more. I'd like to thank Jeremiah Tittle, the founder of Next Chapter Podcasts, and my producer, Pete Musto. Our audio engineer, editor, and sound designer is Justin Cortese. Be sure to subscribe to Next Chapter Podcasts for updates on all the latest content, and don't forget to rate and review our shows, which really, really helps. I'm Michael Goodfriend, and I look forward to sharing more incredible works in the Play On podcast series with you, along with lots of enlightening bonus content at Next Chapter Podcasts.
Next Chapter Podcasts.